It is the little things that count in life. A few lines in a missionary magazine changed my path forever. They stirred something in me, a restlessness, a call. I left behind my peaceful life on a small farm in Dubbo, New South Wales, and set out on what would become the greatest adventure of my life. In October 1929, I came across an article in the Annals of Our Lady of the Sacred Heart. It was a passionate plea to support Australian missionaries, those brave souls giving their lives for the gospel, not overseas, but here in our own land. They spoke of hardship, of schools without support, of missionaries forgotten by their own. The article ended with a question that pierced my soul. When will Australia get behind us in our efforts to conquer for Christ? In that moment, I knew I had to go. I left Sydney aboard the Burns Phillip steamship Malabar. After 11 days at sea, I reached Darwin, then sailed on to Bathurst Island aboard the St. Francis, with 6 Tiwi crewmen and an old captain from Manila. As we neared the island, it rose from the sea, green and vibrant. Coconut palms, mango and banana trees. A Garden of Eden, I thought. Paradise, yet also a mission ground. Hundreds of Tiwi people gathered on the beach as we arrived. They welcomed me into their home and, in time, into their hearts. Father Giselle was there, his handshake firm, his face weathered by the sun, his heart full of vision. I had read about him, the man who brought girls out of forced marriages. But meeting him in person was something else entirely. He had built a mission not just of buildings, but of trust, of love. 3 sisters of Our Lady of the Sacred Heart were already there, strong and tender in equal measure. The children came each day full of laughter, curiosity, and life. We taught them, but they taught us just as much about culture, community, patience, and simplicity. One of my first tasks was to make a coffin for a little one. I poured all my care into crafting it well. It earned me a place in the hearts of the people, and soon after, a Tiwi name, Pallulangini, the left-handed one. I also worked the gardens, clearing land, planting bananas and mangoes. It wasn't only about food, it was about building something together, showing the young men that working the land was holy work. And yes, we played. We kicked around a ball, and before long, footy became a favourite. Brother John Pye, MSc, brought it in, and the Tiwi boys took to it like ducks to water. None of us could have imagined how it would one day become their passion and pride. Every few months, I wrote letters back home. I didn't ask for much, just prayers and a little help for the mission. The Tiwi were becoming my family. It wasn't always easy. The heat, the mosquitoes, the homesickness, yes, they were real. But they faded beside the smiles of the children, the joy of a baptism, the trust slowly built over years. I was just a layman from Dubbo, but on Bathurst Island I found my purpose. 4 years later, my time was drawing to a close. My father was gravely ill, and I told Monsignor Giselle I had to return home. He said he would miss me, and thanked me deeply for what I had given to the mission. On the morning I left, everyone wanted to carry my baggage to the boat. The whole community gathered on the shore. I couldn't say much, only Nimpangi. Goodbye. Climbing to the deck, I looked back with dim eyes at the crowd on the beach. In my heart, I knew it is the little things that count in life.
I'm sitting in front of the board dedicated to a man called Pat Ritchie. Pat Ritchie was born in Dubbo, New South Wales. Pat Ritchie read the annals of Our Lady of the Sacred Heart regularly. And then he picked up one month where it was dedicated to the story of the mission on Bathurst Island. Pat read that story, and he was so taken by the story that he offered to come to Bathurst Island. Now, Pat came here in 1938. He was the first Australian lay missionary to come to help any mission in the Northern Territory. Pat became master of all activities. Pat became a builder, a gardener, a seaman, and even he became a coffin maker. And that poor Pat made the first coffin on the second night that he arrived on Bathurst Island. He was asked to make a coffin. And I think that would have been the first coffin ever made on Bathurst Island, because before they were buried in paper bark. So Pat, in his book, speaks about his making of that coffin. Some of Pat's achievements were, he built a stockyard, so he got some horses. He taught the men to be stockmen, but what stock were they to find? So he got the pigs, and they would hunt for pigs. Pat also built a yard for the cows, but were there cows on Bathurst Island? No, but Pat got cows over here, and Pat taught the Tiwi women to milk the cows. And because they had fresh milk, the babies were very strong in those old days. So Pat was a real man of action, and we owe a lot to that Pat Ritchie of the yesteryear when we think of where we are today. And I think that one of the things in school that should be taught are the people that helped the Tiwi people in the early days. And I would say that Pat Ritchie is one of those. One very good story that should be told about Pat Ritchie is that Pat wanted to build an airstrip, and Bishop Zell and the brothers said, no, we don't need an airstrip here. And Pat said, oh, we should build one. So Pat and the Tiwi men built this airstrip. And then suddenly, one day, Pat was having his lunch with the bishop and the brothers, and they heard the drone of an aeroplane. Sure enough, they looked out. Aeroplane was circling the mission. The aeroplane spotted the little aerodrome that had been built, and it landed. And it was en route from England, and it was running out of fuel. So Pat's airstrip saved disaster. His airstrip saved the plane coming in from England to Australia. So that's a story that should be told on every TV that goes around Australia, because that's a real story. And we have here the photo telling us a story of how Pat built an airstrip. Why did he build an airstrip? Nobody knows. But sure enough, he saved the lives of many. Pat left a message the day that he left the island. And the message was that one evening I told Monsignor Zell that my work was completed. The farm was yielding abundant crops. The stock boys were able to take to their task, and the women were expert milkmaids. All the people were gathered down at the mission lugger the day that Pat Ritchie left the island. Pat was very distressed. He was leaving something that he loved. He turned to the sisters, shook their hands. He turned to the bishop, shook his hand, shook the brother's hand. Then he turned to the Tiwi people, the people that he'd served, the people that he loved. Their eyes were not looking at him because they were upset. And Patrick said just one word to them, Nimpangi, which means goodbye. And quietly he picked up his bag and walked to the mission lugger, got on the lugger, waved the last goodbye, and that was the last we saw of Pat Ritchie. God bless the Ritchie family for giving us Pat. Pat Ritchie had a son, and his son became a Franciscan priest. And I know that Father Ritchie is still alive, and we are dedicating this to your father to let you know that your father is not forgotten on Bathurst Island. God bless you, Father Ritchie.